Over in the Marvel Universe, the X-Men are being drawn into the Fall of X over by the anti-mutant group known as ORCHIS. ORCHIS has really been staging up their attacks, and in the pages of X-Men 22, we've got our best look yet at what ORCHIS has in store for the Marvel Universe. My name is Oracle Braddock, and today let's go ahead and dive into the pages of X-Men issue 22 to see how ORCHIS stages some of their attacks on the X-Men over in New York City. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our content. Want to go ahead and introduce X-Men 22 with Marvel Comics solicitation text for the issue. ORCHIS Rising. Mutantkind may be stronger than ever, but that just makes their enemies more determined than ever to tear them down. ORCHIS's plans are in motion, preparing for the fall. Want to go ahead and read off our creative team on X-Men 22. This one is written by Gerry Duggan, featuring artwork over from Joshua Cassara, colors from Marte Gracia, letters from VC's Clayton, Cowles, and design from Tom Muller and Jay Bowen. Here's a look at our very kind of silly and irreverent cover for X-Men 22, showcasing all of the ORCHIS threats that are kind of teeming throughout the Marvel Universe. Of course, I want to extend a big thank you to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting the preview of the issue so incredibly fast here. Let's go ahead and kick off the review by talking a little bit about Joshua Cassara's artwork in the issue. Really like the kind of complicated and curvy line that Cassara lends to the issue. It's really fascinating, I think, comparing, what he contributes to this book and kind of contrasting it over with what Lucas Wernick is delivering over on Immortal X-Men. I think some of these kind of really super candid facial expressions depict a really kind of fascinating element of the character. This moment over with kind of Karima and Opal that kicks off the issue is so harrowing. It sort of reminds me of that subplot over with kind of Ben Urich that led over to the pages of Judgment Day. Really like it when author Gerry Duggan tries to pull off this sort of like noir-based, kind of underpinning of the X-Men with characters who are also not mutants or like instrumental to the Marvel Universe. As you can tell by looking at this facial expression for Opal, I think Cassara was able to craft kind of so much of the detail on her face to get such a strong, like, emotional impact from this, really minor scene with sort of ancillary characters that I think is going to have a big impact on the issue, just like that conversation with Ben Urich and Cyclops led to over in the pages of Judgment Day. I'm so excited to see if this moment is going to be like the sort of butterfly effect that kind of somehow leads to the percolation of Fall of X over in the Marvel Universe. And believe me, if this moment doesn't do it, then the next scene probably will. Because this is kind of homaging back to our cover where we're getting a look over at Nimrod, Dr. Stasis, ORCHIS, and as well as MODOK kind of teaming up together, touring the streets over from New York and actually kind of hinting at what essentially can lead to the Fall of X. There's a really kind of fascinating element of Krakoa that MODOK and Dr. Stasis are sort of, perverting and using to their own ends. So, sort of seeing how that plot thread will slowly kind of percolate and affect future issues, I think leads to so much intrigue behind this book, just like this scene that we're looking at right here over with Opal and Karima. But I would argue that that moment with ORCHIS is just a little bit more animated and also is a little bit more violent too. I think Joshua Cassara must have a great job drawing some of the kind of exaggerated facial expressions for MODOK. MODOK's face is drawn so complicated with so many lines, and it's just so fantastic to look at just the way that Cassara is depicting MODOK's really kind of absurdist and dark sense of humor over in the issue as well. One additional really fascinating aspect of this issue is when kind of the X-Men directly take their fight over to New York City with ORCHIS. I thought this was a super, super fun moment in the issue that kind of brought our team into conflict with ORCHIS directly. And I thought the idea that kind of stemmed from ORCHIS showing up in this issue in the first place by offering kind of, a treatment to suppress mutant power is another really fascinating element of this series that kind of calls upon the prime directive for ORCHIS. Elsewhere in the issue, I thought there were some really fantastic moments over for Firestar, a kind of newer X-Men that's joining the team. I've been waiting for her to show up and have some really kind of triumphant moments, and I think this issue is really what does it. Elsewhere, there's some great moments in the tale over with Forge. Forge, Gerry Duggan must have some sort of implicit enjoyment of this character in particular, because there's all these sort of little individual details about him that we keep learning over in the series. And a lot of his questions that he asks kind of lead to bigger implications later on in this narrative as well. It's so funny kind of looking over this most recent run on X-Men, because usually when you get a comic book that's looking to introduce an element of humor, it can't really be serious. But I think Gerry Duggan and Joshua Cassara do such a fantastic job in this tale, kind of towing the line and making sure that this book has some really silly moments, but also has the plot to go ahead and back it up. Finally, I do like that the kind of tension over between Jean Grey and Cyclops that really, for me, kind of came out of nowhere was also directly referenced in this issue as well. Really like that Gerry Duggan is kind of keeping, some of his character work consistent from issue to issue over in the tale. And finally, I love some of the cliffhangers over on Gerry Duggan's run. And I think this kind of final page that Joshua Cassara has drawn with 2 panels are both super hilarious. They kind of open up another plot thread that Gerry Duggan has kind of utilized in the pages of this X-Men issue as well. And I'm so curious to see how it kind of plays out. I think going forward, when I look back across Gerry Duggan's run on X-Men, I'm really going to remember some of these off-the-wall story scenarios and cliffhangers with really kind of high regard over across this issue. I think that Jonathan Hickman had some fun like this in his initial run, but Gerry Duggan has really taken and ran with that sense of humor, and it really feels like in his X-Men book, something zany and silly is going to happen. It's only a matter of time waiting to get there, but the stakes will still be high no matter what. So overall here, I'm still incredibly happy with Marvel's main X-Men book. I think this title has been such a joy to read month over month. I think one great aspect about it that really separates it, I would say, from the rest of the Marvel comic book line, frankly, it's Joshua Cassara's art. But besides that, it's that really crazy sense of humor. Especially with kind of the last arc of the series, there were some really fascinating scenarios over with Brew and some of the Brood characters in the Marvel Universe that Gerry Duggan really ran with. And I love that this issue follows suit as well. Thought there was some really fantastic kind of plotting and characterization. And finally, I love all of these tiny little insignificant moments that I think are going to have huge ramifications over on the plot. Well, I want to know from you, what were some of your thoughts over on X-Men 22? Did you enjoy this issue as much as I did? Thank you so much for coming to check out our video, and we'll be back for everything X-Men related in the very near future. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.